revenue from the point of view of trying to create employment and all those other things that we say most state governors could do. We are hoping that we can see increasing success stories which will put pressure on people to get their own state governors and their state itself to start paying attention to this whole concept of agriculture. You really can't force any state or governor to look in a particular direction, but you're hoping that the circumstance that surrounds them will begin to indicate that, look, you know what, we think that we had better begin to follow through. And it's going to get very, very competitive, and I hope it does, whereby each state is looking at itself more from how much am I doing in agriculture compared to another particular state. The one that I'm just familiar with, just by circumstance, is what Kwara State did with the Zimbabwean farmers that came several years ago and started Shonga farms and so on. But that just shows the kind of initiative and determination and persistence that one needs to adopt in order for these things to happen.
Sorry
yeah,
about
sure,
that.
sure.
But in all this, are we thinking of reviving and also revamping some of our institutes? We have so many research institutes there in the country, so that we stop talking about Songhai farm.
Yeah, sure.
People can start talking about our own institutes and come back.
Yeah.
And there was once a time some people came all the way from Asia to NIFO as the Institute for Oil Palm Research. Mm-hmm. So can this summit, or will this summit be looking towards reviving?
Yeah, I think there's a panel session that's talking about science, technology, research, and so on. And I think the people that are sitting on that panel are people that are dealing with research institutes. How can we get better quality seeds? How can we improve fertilizer input? How can we be a bit more scientific in our approach to farming? Because nowadays it's all about efficient farming, trying to increase the level of productivity. I once had a discussion with the minister where he had seen in his office a photograph of him and a Chinese man who had increased the production of rice about twofold. Almost like saying that, if you're getting 1,000 tons from a particular location, he had increased it to about 2,000 tons, all from productivity, all from getting a much more efficient output.
And that's the outcome of good research.
Well, yes. And like you said, and this takes me again back to the old days where we had many research institutes. You see, let me tell you briefly about the concept of competencies. A country needs to develop competencies in a particular area, and those competencies tend to follow your natural resources. And we developed phenomenal competencies in agriculture. Our banking system revolved around agriculture. In those days, we had Bank of the North dealing with groundnuts and cotton and so on. We had National Bank in the Western region dealing with cocoa, the cocoa farmers, the cooperatives, and so on. We had African Continental Bank, which was for the Eastern region, dealing with your oil plantations and rubber and so on and so forth. And the whole system worked. The whole financing system worked. The same thing, we had research institutes, each one very regional in nature. There's one IITA for the Western region. I think there's some in the north, some significantly in the southeast, south region as well. The whole system of the railway system. I'm a railway child. My father worked in railways. And I remember we had, carriages that were carrying stuff from the north to the ports, out of the country. So our competencies revolved around agricultural production. We even in secondary school, for Christ's sake, we used to, every Thursday, I remember in my school, we used to have horticultural sessions where you must have your own little patch and you must farm. And that was a mindset then. It was just a whole orientation trying to develop major competencies in farming, in agriculture, and so on. And I always say that imagine we carried on with that trajectory and we didn't have any oil. I think we'll be a much wealthier country than we are today.
Do you have any timeline in terms of when to begin to get the kind of results that you're talking about today?
Well, I really don't know. And this is where I sort of have to concede and step back and say it depends on what the ministry is doing. All we are doing as far as the Economic Summit Group is saying that, look, we're creating a platform for you to invite Nigerians to come and participate in something that's going to impact everybody's lives in a very, very positive way. We're doing what it is we want to do, trying to create a lot of awareness, influence policy and try and get. Don't forget that once we get going, we're going to start looking at policy issues in the different aspects, in financing, even in logistics, in getting rights and legal issues and so on. And all these things are going to begin to spring up as people begin to pay more attention. And then we'll start pursuing each one again and see how we can get these things.
But there are fears. I mean, there are fears, especially as regards health. We've seen in recent times how, a host of new diseases are also coming up as a result of, scientifically modified seeds and all of that, which were done for better yields and all. Do you think that they should have been done in consultation with, say, health? Or do you think that we're not yet at the stage where we have to worry about that? Because one of the advantages a host of people say we have is that most of the produce we still have in Nigeria now are as organic as they come. Do you see a situation where we might be leaving that and going for things that will be less organic, as it were?
Well, I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. I think that the kind of pressures that you have in countries that have to produce in large volumes, and we've got this humongous level of consumption and even waste of food and so on. I don't think we're at that stage. Yes, we will look, I imagine, at things that increase the level of productivity in the farmlands, the level of return and the quality of output in the farms. But I don't think we'll be doing it at the expense of health. I don't think we are reaching the stage where we want to be that aggressive about production. We're at the very elementary stages, and it's just to get people to go to the farm and begin to do things.
The reason why I ask that is because, the NESG is talking more about privatization and how the private sector can come in and how government should step back. And even you said that over the years, government has listened to you. Do you think that, government should, I don't know how much space you think government should give to the private sector when it comes to agriculture?
It's not so much government giving space as the government being more collaborative. Okay, let me give you an example of some discussions because, like I said, I've not really done an agricultural person, but in recent times I've sort of got into a lot of conversation. Somebody once suggested that, he said, if you look at people who develop real estate, you get a huge area and you put in infrastructure, you put in the roads, you put in the drainage system, you put in power. Then you sell the land. You tell people, come and buy your plot of land and build your home. And what you've done is you've prepared the infrastructure for people to come and buy the land, and obviously when they're paying for the land, they're paying for all the investments you made in putting that infrastructure in place. We're saying that, well, can't we try that model for farming? And this is where the government is going to come in. Can the government come and clear land? Clearing land, I understand, is the major killer for anybody who wants to go into farming. But if I called you and said, oh, here's a hectare of land, it's all cleared, just come in and begin to plant and do all those things, and you're well on the way, and we will build the cost of that clearing into the sale or lease of the land. So it's a participatory thing that we're looking at. In the past, government took on the responsibility from a more developmental point of view. We're saying, look, you need to take this responsibility from a business point of view. And when you hear business, the private sector springs up and say, yep, okay, I'm here to do this. And that's fine. But the government says, well, we will create an enabling environment, we'll make it possible, it's not for free, and come in and participate like in your normal business rules. And we're hoping your need to get the return on investment will drive your level of efficiency.
So you don't see a role for government regulation here? Is that what you're saying?
Regulation is always important. In fact, one of the other things that we say that, look, the more we deregulate, the more we need to regulate. And we have to build our regulatory institutions. We have to even increase and improve our skill in regulating, in knowing the role that we play, because there's a thin line between regulating and actually doing. You find that some governments sometimes, instead of just being a regulator and saying, are you in order? What they end up doing is actually getting into doing the job itself.
Any thoughts or any plans to regulate in terms of pricing?
Pricing?
In the future?
Well, I don't know. I really don't know. And I'm never one to encourage price regulation. Yes, it creates black markets and inefficiencies.
All right, Mr. Folishov, Chairman of the Board of NESG Group, thank you for coming on this day.
Thank you very much. It's been great talking to you all.
On Sunrise this day, I mean.
I was wondering.
PHCN, Ibadan Electricity Distribution Company, whose network cuts across over